anything but that. Recovered by Gabby Marshall. Here comes Clark. How will she go for history?
Caitlyn Clark is ridiculous. Seriously. Caitlyn Clark is incredible, shattering all the previous NCAA basketball records, dropping gob-stopping numbers, and putting women's basketball on the map. She's completely shifted the trajectory and expanded the potential of women's basketball entirely. How? Just by being that damn good. She's garnered respect from everyone by displaying her incredible ability. Prior to this Clark renaissance, discussions around the NBA and around women's basketball was downright disrespectful. They were viewed as a joke, a clown show compared to NBA basketball. And while admittedly the product was worse, it was astounding on how badly these women were getting treated. The WNBA was a disaster. They were constantly losing money, getting no viewership and no respect. They were unlikable, unmarketable, and unwanted. Now again, to be fair, the unlikability part was partially their fault. I mean, we all remember the Andre Iguodala tweet from the entire equal pay debacle. Those things didn't help the WNBA's image. And to the haters, it justified the clowning that the WNBA got. Their entire history was full of this. All of the past that was beefed with disrespect, jokes, and an uncaring attitude was dissipated by one woman. No one dares to crack jokes, to disrespect, to call her trash. She's put the world on notice. Women's basketball is coming. It's expanded past her too. People were having genuine discourse around it. Comment sections are filled with actual discussions compared to what NBA players get. And when Caitlyn Clark goes to the WNBA, she'll drag the sinking ship up with her. Her eyeball games are already sold out, something people would have scoffed at years ago. And when you send her to the next level of play, you better believe that people will tune into that. She is saving women's basketball. But what if I tell you that was expected? From the dawn of humanity, the most important part has been evolution. Ever since the very beginning, the organisms on this planet have thrived through evolution. Whether it was weeding out all the weaklings through natural selection or learning from centuries of your ancestors' mistakes and failures, evolution has always been the driving force behind humanity, and basketball has been no exception. From the start of the league, the NBA has went into phases of stark change from its inception to today's leagues, one of the most skilled eras ever. And of course, they're getting better. They're scoring more than ever. They're breaking formerly thought to be unbreakable records, and they do it in style too. Demigods soaring through the air and punching down on their opponents. 7'5" unicorns hitting a flurry of basketball moves before sticking the half-court shot. Offensive players transforming to offensive savant, displaying skills prior players can only dream of. The NBA is transforming as we speak in a multitude of ways. The way the players play, the way it's marketed, and the way it's perceived. And the WNBA, shoot, women's basketball is far from the exception. They seem to be in a dead era. Decades of people guffawing at how worse of a product it was, so a firecracker called Caitlyn Clark came and shut them up, and to everyone's shock, brought women's basketball to the forefront. But you shouldn't be shocked. You shouldn't be surprised that women's basketball got a kick to its engine in the form of notoriety. It's only natural. The guys got a little bit of a head start in the basketball department. The first year women, or girls I should say, were allowed to play high school basketball was in 1971, 25 years after the NBA was founded. In 1981, the NCAA started sponsoring women's sports, 42 years after NCAA's men's basketball started. And the WNBA was founded in 1996, 50 years from when the NBA started. What does that mean? Well, it means the WNBA, or women's basketball as an entirety, is in its infancy. The league has had less time to build viewership and get establishment in sports entertainment. The players have had less time to evolve and had less of the opportunity to build a brand. This is when you compare it to how they have to compete with a monster that's the NBA. It's put them in a losing battle. They're so far behind in the process that it was a losing battle from the start. How far behind? In this stage of development, the WNBA is as far as the NBA was in 1974. And you could see it. Even though it's obvious that the skill is higher, you could see some similarities in their mannerisms during these certain aspects. Where does Caitlyn Clark play a role in this? She's the first big milestone or evidence of this evolution. Not only skill-wise, where she's dropping crazy numbers, but she's doing it entertainingly too. Sinking logo threes effortlessly, easily captivated the respect of NBA basketball fans, which has now allowed a branch off. It's near identical, really. You may say that early in the NBA's development, they had Wilt and Bill. I think it's the same for the WNBA. The WNBA did have these figures in their early years. Diana T, Lisa Leslie, but they didn't earn the respect that Bill and Wilt did. Why? Because the WNBA was considered a laughingstock and was never taken seriously. The early NBA didn't have a monster competitor league to deal with. The concept of professional basketball just got introduced with the NBA, and they were allowed to be a little goofy because they didn't have a more developed, more entertaining counterpart to compare themselves to. We're obviously seeing some unreal special things with the numbers Clark is putting up, but the reach is dipping beyond that. Her success and respect garnered is blossoming into respect in other avenues. People are dialed into what's happening, some more than men's basketball. A lot of the NBA fans are genuinely interested in what happens in March Madness, DC, myself included. That will transfer to the WNBA. Now, there are some concerns that we have to take into account. Even though women's basketball has been hated on for a hot minute, the hate was more directed at the WNBA. Women's basketball did get some flack, but even before Caitlyn Clark, there was not only less hate, but there was some love sprinkled in there. I mean, think of Paige buckets. There has been a major concern if the problem is actually the WNBA and their management of these names. Still though, I don't really think that matters. I think with a fresh set of eyes and without the sexist bias that a lot of people had on them, it has given them an opportunity to expand. This is all thanks to Caitlyn Clark. Well, mostly thanks to Caitlyn Clark. The way she's shifted the narrative and conversation and revolutionized the sport that she's played in through skill alone is reminiscent of what Michael Jordan did for the NBA in the 90s and what Magic and Bird did in the 80s. And she's done this without getting drafted yet. Is she the savior? Yes and no. She did save the WNBA, but it should have been expected. As more and more women played basketball, eventually it should be known that one of them was going to become talented enough to shut the haters up. And even though if we're going year by year, they're at 1974, I think their development is past that. The upside of being in an era where you have another more advanced league is that you pick up on the things they do, the plays they run, the moves they make, without going through the trial and error process that they had to. And they will improve farther than that. We're already seeing high schoolers dunking. In the next few decades, you might start seeing some East Bays and windmills. The popularity is evolving too. Women's college basketball is turning national. And while it's previously hated on, as I said, it won't be anymore. Along with that, obviously the WNBA will skyrocket too. They're past the quote-unquote infancy stage that both teams went through. The stage where stars and prominent figures are developing. Bill and Wilt for the NBA and Clark and Sabrina for the WNBA. Since the WNBA has always been compared to the NBA and has always been made fun of, the push out of the infancy simmers down. This allows and opens the door for marketing, something the NBA didn't have when they were in this stage. And let me tell you, women's basketball has been taking full advantage of it. We're seeing a lot of new names that expand the fans' knowledge on the game, and they don't need to look for it. A scroll and a swipe and they already have these names being pushed out there, and people are willing to listen and know before they see a highlight or a post, then scoff and write an ignorant comment. Now, an actual exchange is taking place that is growing the community more. Caitlyn Clark will cement herself, not only in women's NCAA basketball history, not only in NCAA basketball history, or just women's basketball history, but basketball as a whole will remember her name. The player who's dialing the clock that will single-handedly shift the WNBA to a national stage. With the way Bill Russell, Magic, and Bird, or even the great Michael Jordan affected the WNBA. Buckle up, guys. This is just the beginning. When Clark gets to the WNBA, all that will be created will just be a bigger stage. She's about to make a humongous shift, and things are just getting started. Get excited, guys.